Can parcel lockers really work in residential areas? Keep watching to find out.
Last Mile Profits is brought to you by Parcel Pending by Quadin.
Hello, everyone. Here again with Gregor. We have a topic that comes up again and again. Gregor, if I had to note the number of times I've heard that, yeah, Poland is great, but lockers will not work in our market because our customers or our consignees are too lazy or it's not convenient enough for them. They want home delivery. You heard that?
Yeah, not only that, of course, a common argument is it works in Poland because there are urban areas with tall apartment blocks, either ones from the communist era or the early 90s. And of course, there's a lot of modern apartments getting built, a lot of new builds in Poland at the moment, like you're seeing on the screen right now. And in those environments, of course, out of home works better. It's more difficult to go up the stairs and transport goods and so forth. However, it's completely false to suggest that Poland does not have urban areas that are akin to those that you would see in other markets like Ireland or the UK, for example, where you have lots of private individual homes with gardens on the front, cars on the drive, and so forth. And there are some solutions that parcel locker companies have for those areas, including hosting parcel lockers on properties. And one such example I found was a property that even had 4 parcel lockers in and around the house. So we saw in France one person getting angry for 1 locker, imagine 4. But it seems that the neighbourhood are perfectly okay with this.
Yeah, and I think, Gregor, it's because of convenience. And what I always say when someone comes back to me and says, no, it won't work, the answer is always the same. It's all about convenience. If the locker is what bpost coined as being slipper distance or on my way, which is the case with my locker. So I live in a residential area in houses or in a house even. And the locker I have is about 250 meters from my door. And it literally is slipper distance. But not only is it so close that if I have to walk to it, it isn't a big deal. It's also on my way wherever I go in my car, I pass that locker. So it's actually almost like a home delivery with the convenience that I pick up when I want and I don't have to be home at all and every time. So I think that, where you have that scenario, it will work. The challenge is where you're not able to get that sort of density of points. The classic example I get is from the US, where people say, well, our guys and girls, they don't get out of the car. They're not going to want to go even 50 meters. And the answer is, if the network is good, proximate, slipper distance, they don't have to, because when they drive to wherever, they pass by this locker. So the distance they actually have to walk is 2 or 3 meters. With one other caveat, Greg, and I didn't say that. Not only does it have to be proximate, but it has to be in a place that you can easily stop next to it, because there's no point having one very close, but the nearest place you can park is 30 meters away.
Yeah, it's America, and we all know, very car-centric. But of course, there are European markets where cars are not as essential as they are in the States, and there are these typical sort of residential areas that we've been talking about where many people suggest that out of home does not work. But beyond hosting parcel lockers in properties to try to achieve some sort of density in these areas, what are some of the other creative ways that we can put out of home points into these areas and get people going to PUDOs and lockers as opposed to ordering home delivery as a sort of automatic thought?
Well, there's a lot of things happening. First of all, one of the ideas actually isn't about lockers. It's about lifestyle PUDOs. So the idea is, and this is something that was tested in the UK very early on by what used to be called Hermes. Now it's called Every. There's a company acquired by Vintage, surprise, surprise, in the Netherlands, which is called Homer. And the idea there is that if somebody has space at home, they're a little bit bored, they'd like to make a few extra euros, they can open up their garage or their living room, literally, to people who can pick up or drop off parcels. There are various derivatives where that same person can theoretically locally drop off to neighbors nearby if that's what's needed. So I think there's a lot of derivatives that primarily, I would say, either based on PUDO or on a human support service to the locker. That sounds very complicated, but what I mean is a person actually allowing the parcel to be brought to someone's doorstep, which could be relevant to somebody who's not well, who isn't able to get out of the home. So I think there's a lot of stuff like that. But Gregor, however we look at it, it starts and ends with the fact that the point, whether it's a locker or a PUDO, has to be really proximate.
As I had a look at the map in Wrocław, a lot of these residential areas, they're not necessarily all in the suburbs. They can be relatively close to the city centre. Of course, a lot of the properties there are quite expensive. You can imagine these are consumers who are not shy on money and may well order goods online quite frequently, and therefore if you have a PUDO or a locker within that area, and there are not so many in that area, that is very much a prime location. Looking at the map, there are a few sort of no man's land areas, sort of a couple of 100 square meters, where you really, or even further than that, it could be, half a kilometer, square meters, where you could inject a few lockers. But it's all about finding that site and getting permission to install it.
Yeah, and I think, and this is the real key. We talk about InPost success, and one of the reasons that they're successful is they have almost 30,000, maybe now they already have 30,000 points in Poland with a population of about 38 million people. Wow. And any country, I'll put my head on the block. In my opinion, any country that would have that sort of density of machines, even better if it's supported by an equal number of PUDOs, will become an out-of-home market. And the only question is whether it's going to be 60% out of home or 40% out of home. But there is no question that out of home will become a critical part of the last mile. And honestly, in my opinion, whether it is the US, whether it's the UK, whether it's some of the developing markets on the fringes of the European Union, it's just a question of time.
And the other areas where very often people say that you can't have lockers, they tend to be historic city centres or places where people do not want to see lockers built outdoors. And of course, InPost has got around that problem in cities like Poznan by putting lockers indoors, creating these locker banks like we've seen bpost used in Belgium. So if you are creative, you can get around these things.
Oh, and there's also the example used by Allegro One or by Lithuanian Post. So Lithuanian Post did something really cool, and I mention it quite often because I love it, where they got local artists to paint something that's relevant and interesting to the local community. So instead of having what I personally like them, but some people might not like the locker, you have a nice dedicated painting printed on the locker, or the Allegro One version, which is where you get this green vibe with, I should say, artificial wood on the side, but it looks pretty wooden, and plants around it in a green sort of pretty relaxing, cool color scheme. So I think, Gregor, that there are always solutions if someone's creative enough. And for me, I'll end where I started. Every market will be an out-of-home market. It's just a question of time.
On that point, actually, Allegro have installed a parcel locker next to a mural where they have some art commissioned. A local artist has done something quite pretty. And they even have their own Wrocław dwarf, like a number of companies. So it's an example of some maybe clever marketing and working out how to get lockers installed within communities without them sticking out like a sore thumb.
Well, look, it would be great maybe if we can show some of these, and I hope we have been able to show some of these, but also if our viewers have some great examples of lockers that look really good, fit into the environment, maybe some horror stories where they don't, it would be really great. Please share them below, particularly on LinkedIn, because that's the channel that we respond to most easily. Gregor, really great discussion. Thanks for your input.